Well, Bill and Amber, the biggest thing we've learned comes from this email that I recently obtained. It reveals that reducing the district's contingency fund is not a solution to addressing the budget deficit. That is no longer an option. Now, sources tell me that this email was sent to board members by Superintendent Dr. Demetrius Liggins earlier this week. Now, for some background, FCPS has repeatedly said that the projected contingency fund for next year was right around $42 million. In his email, Liggins says the district won't have a final number for the contingency fund until August 25th, but internal calculations project it will be more in the range of $15 to $22 million. For context, state law requires districts to have a contingency fund of at least 2% to ensure they maintain financial stability and are prepared for unexpected expenses or revenue shortfalls. FCPS policy requires a 6% fund. The fund is not meant to be spent outside of a true financial emergency. Its use is not automatic and must be approved by the Board of Education in a public meeting. FCPS says the contingency fund has not been touched for the last 5 audited years. Now, the work group's suggestions to address that $16 million budget deficit are slated to be presented to the board here Monday night. I have reached out to the district to ask them several questions about this email, including when exactly they learned the difference in the projected contingency fund. They have not yet returned my request for comment. We, of course, are continuing to follow this story throughout the night, and I will have much more on this and this email from Liggins coming up on WKYT News at 6. But for now, in Lexington, Samantha Valentino, WKYT. FCPS has repeatedly said that the projected contingency fund for next year was expected to be just under $42 million. Now, this email that I've recently obtained tells a very different story. Sources, including an FCPS board member, tell me Superintendent Dr. Demetrius Liggins sent this email to board members earlier this week. In it, he says internal calculations suggest that that contingency fund will actually be more in the range of $15 to $22 million. That means that the work group's suggestion to pull from the contingency fund to address the district's $16 million budget deficit isn't actually an option. Liggins' email says the contingency amount has been, quote, somewhat uncertain, but they're getting closer to an actual estimation. The final number will be confirmed around August 25th. For context, state law requires districts to have a contingency fund of at least 2% to ensure they maintain financial stability and are prepared for unexpected expenses or revenue shortfalls. FCPS policy requires a 6% fund. The fund is not meant to be spent outside of a true financial emergency. Its use is not automatic and must be approved by the Board of Education in a public meeting. FCPS says the contingency hasn't been touched for the last 5 audited years. That's why the district's budget solutions work group suggested reducing the fund from 6 to 4%, a solution they were told would free up $14 million.
Has the board given consideration of reducing our contingency?
We have not brought that to them directly. I think that's something they would have to explore. That's something for sure. I mean, that's a great solution.
Seems like a pretty simple solution.
Yeah.
When the group ranked their solutions, reducing the fund to 4% took the #1 spot. Right behind it was further reducing the fund, taking the full $16 million from it to resolve the budget deficit. But we now know from Liggins' email these solutions are no longer possible. In it, Liggins also outlines what he calls, quote, 3 other significant cost pressures where expenses have outpaced revenues. Now, they include preschool expenses being $2 million higher than what can be recouped in revenue, employee retirements accumulating $2 million in penalties, and nutrition services revenues not keeping up with inflation, leaving the district roughly $6 million behind in payments, with only $4 million cash in hand on that fund. Now, the work group's suggestions to address the budget deficit are slated to be presented to the board here Monday night. Last night, FCPS Superintendent Dr. Demetrius Liggins announced several steps to decrease spending. The changes were announced in an email to families and staff. It came just 24 hours after a WKYT Investigates report revealed the district's contingency fund is projected to be up to $20 million less than planned. The Budget Solutions Work Group recommended lowering the contingency fund to address the district's $16 million budget deficit. Now, that's no longer an option. Liggins' changes included limiting employee travel, but tonight we're learning the board will be asked to approve $46,000 in professional leave at their board meeting on Monday. Dr. Liggins' changes include providing monthly updates to keep the community informed, launching an internal review of current and past financial procedures, and limiting travel. He says all out-of-state or overnight professional development travel funded by the general fund will be limited to, quote, mandatory purposes only. It's unclear what the district considers mandatory. However, the agenda for Monday night's board meeting shows they'll be asked to approve $46,000 worth of travel. Of it, $28,000 will come from the general fund. All trips from the general fund are overnight and several are out of state. They include a $2,800 trip to Texas for the district's chief legal officer, sending 2 employees to a conference in Charlotte for $3,000 each, and a $1,300 3-day trip to Louisville for the district's food service coordinator. There's also a trip to an internal audit conference in Charlotte for 2 of the district's internal auditors. It would cost a total of $4,500. In July, I sat down with Dr. Liggins to ask him at length about the district's budget, including employee travel. Since announcing the $16 million budget deficit in May, the board has approved at least 3 trips for Liggins, along with 30 administrators. Can you justify the spending that is going to these trips for people? Because I know for parents that is a concern. They don't understand why we're spending so much money on these trips.
Absolutely, because they're not trips, they're professional learning experiences. I feel that administrators deserve to grow and learn and have a responsibility to do so, just as much as teachers, just as much as a custodian, just as much as a cafeteria worker, or anyone else that is doing a job for Fayette County Public Schools. The list of professional leave requests up for approval Monday night includes a column for the trip's purpose. The purposes are broken down into 4 categories. As you can see, the listed purposes for trips of the same category are identical. We reached out to FCPS ahead of our story revealing the difference in next year's projected contingency fund. They have not yet responded to our questions, including when the district learned of the difference. In an email, Superintendent Liggins lays out talking points for board members when discussing the $16 million budget gap with community members. He says the goal is to, quote, ensure we are sharing consistent, factual information about the financial challenges facing our district, how we arrived here, and the steps being taken to address them. Liggins lists several reasons: enrollment shifts, benefit costs rising, higher compensation expenses, inflation in operations, and flat state funding, despite rising costs and new unexpected pension invoices. Liggins says there have been shifts in district enrollment. While there's slower growth overall, there are higher numbers of students requiring more costly services. He lists special education, English learners, and pre-K as examples. Additionally, he says new school openings add, quote, millions in fixed costs without offsetting closures. Under high compensation expenses, Liggins says recent pay adjustments for all employee groups resulted in unpredictable increasing in experience level and higher salary teachers and staffs and fewer vacancy savings. Liggins also cites rising benefit costs. He says health insurance is up 9% for fiscal year 2026, along with what he calls $2 million in pension catch-up. The talking points also list, quote, key messages for the community. These include that these challenges stretch far beyond K-12 education, citing that UK and local nonprofits are also feeling the pinch due to the current financial climate. Liggins says, quote, transparency and community collaboration are essential as we address these challenges together. Finally, the superintendent wants the board to make sure community members know, quote, FCPS's shortfall is not the result of mismanagement or waste, although we continually seek ways to operate more efficiently. In an August 10th email to board member, Superintendent Dr. Demetrius Liggins explained internal calculations, quote, project a carryover balance, true contingency, in the range of $15 to $22 million. In June, the Budget Solutions Work Group was told the estimated general fund contingency was projected to be just shy of $42 million. They were told dropping the contingency from 6% to 4% would free up $14 million to help address the district's projected $16 million deficit for next year. This was ranked the group's most popular solution to the deficit.
It looked like in the presentation from the district that there's a pot of money on the side, sort of like a rainy day fund that they called contingency.
While Stein says he knew how a contingency worked prior to working with the group, some other members didn't.
I think this whole thing is about messaging. I do not believe in my soul that there's been any mismanagement, any significant waste. Certainly no malfeasance.
Now that reducing the contingency is no longer an option, raising the occupational license tax was brought up again in Monday's board meeting.
I think universally that committee believed that we don't need to raise the occupational license tax.
Raising the occupational license tax was ranked last among the work group's suggestions. Stein says he hopes the board will consider all other options before considering raising the tax.
There were a number of good suggestions on there. There's fundraising, selling of assets, reduction in some areas without touching schools or students.
In a more than $800 million tentative budget, Stein says surely the district can find $16 million to cut. In Lexington, Samantha Valentino, WKYT.
She has part one of tonight's two-part WKYT Investigates.
The FCPS Budget Solutions Work Group was tasked with coming up with ways to address the district's projected $16 million budget deficit for next year. In their first meeting, they were told the general fund contingency was projected to be just shy of $42 million. They ranked 10 solutions. Most popular was reducing the contingency from 6 to 4%. They were told this would free up $14 million. Second most popular was pulling the full $16 million from the contingency. In an email to board members on August 10th, Superintendent Dr. Demetris Ligon said this is no longer a viable option, as the carryover balance, or true contingency, is projected to be in the range of $15 to $22 million. The contingency, along with the rest of the work group's suggestions, was discussed in Monday night's board meeting.
Has the contingency already been dipped into? Have some of those dollars already been spent?
I don't want to be stuck with a number that I've told you at this meeting and then it changes. I'm very hesitant to give a number.
The question was also raised as to why the Budget Solutions Work Group wasn't told the contingency would be lower than the estimated $42 million. FCPS Financial Director Rodney Jackson said he told the group during their second meeting.
That's when you got up to talk and mentioned that the contingency had not been touched in 5 years and the money is still there. I mean, I'm wondering.
Oh, I never said the money was still there.
You said them funds are there.
No, I said we haven't touched it in 5 years. I said the money
And
may
them
not be
funds
there.
are there.
Yeah, I never said they would be there. The funds were there. You can play the clip. I know I did not say that.
WKYT reviewed the recording of the Budget Solutions Work Group's second meeting on July 15th. In the meeting, Jackson told the work group the contingency fund had not been accessed in 5 years.
So that goes to the 2024 year going backwards. So them funds are there. It's just not a theoretical number, but it's 6% of the budget based on our policy. So that's there. It hasn't been touched.
Jackson did explain the contingency balance remained unknown, noting the group had some great ideas for addressing the projected budget deficit.
But the reality of it, contingency is going to only serve a piece of that, but we don't know what that number is going to be this year yet.
In Dr. Liggins' email to board members, he said they should have a final number around August 25th. In Lexington, Samantha Valentino, WKYT.
Has part two of tonight's WKYT Investigates.
In the Budget Solutions Work Group's first meeting on June 25th, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Houston Barber broke down the tentative budget. The general fund contingency was listed at just shy of $42 million. Over the course of the Budget Solutions Work Group's 3 meetings, they discussed ways to address the district's projected $16 million budget deficit. Their most popular solution was reducing the contingency from 6 to 4% to free up $14 million. Second most popular was pulling the full $16 million from the contingency. But an August 10th email from Superintendent Dr. Demetris Ligon to board members said that's no longer viable, as the carryover balance, or true contingency, is projected to be in the range of $15 to $22 million. He defines contingency as, quote, a projection of what may remain if revenues meet forecast and spending stays on track, while the fund balance is, quote, the actual year-end amount that rolls forward into the next year's budget. This fund balance is the district's true cash balance and, in practice, serves as our real contingency. Monday night, the FCPS board heard the work group's suggestions.
How did the projected contingency or the carry forward balance change in such a short amount of time from when numbers were shared with the Budget Solution Work Group this summer and then just last week?
Dr. Barber explained that $42 million was budgeted for unexpected costs or emergencies. However, he says rising inflationary costs increased more than forecasted. He told the board that a portion of the contingency fund has been enacted as designed in order to maintain uninterrupted services to schools, students, and staff.
So what happened to the fund balance then? So in addition to the planned contingency, we also used part of the fund balance and carried forward. Despite planning and no new spending, fixed costs rose faster than revenues.
He later compared the situation to paying a mortgage.
If you got to pay a mortgage, and every day you know this is the salary that's coming in, you're like, this is my salary, I know I'm going to get it. But all of a sudden, you have a catastrophe or something happens, your car breaks down, groceries prices go up, things going on. Well, guess what? Your planned savings is going to be gone.
I'm pretty concerned that we've gone into the contingency to the amount that we have, and we weren't made aware of that as a board.
Board member Dr. Monica Mundy cited board policy, which says drawing from the contingency requires board approval.
Has the contingency already been dipped into? Have some of those dollars already been spent?
I don't want to be stuck with a number that I've told you at this meeting and then it changes. I'm very hesitant to give a number.
In Dr. Liggins' email to board members, he said they should have a final number around August 25th. In Lexington, Samantha Valentino, WKYT.